My name is Olivia, and until recently I thought I had it all. At 28 years old, I was living in a charming, sun-drenched apartment in downtown San Diego, working as a freelance graphic designer, a job I genuinely loved. The ocean was a short bike ride away, the weather was perpetually perfect, and my social life was vibrant, filled with friends and laughter. But most importantly, I had Maya, my best friend since freshman year of college. We were inseparable, two peas in a pod, sharing everything from clothes and secrets to dreams and aspirations. Maya was my rock, my confidant, the sister I never had. We had weathered countless storms together, bad breakups, academic stress, family drama, and the general chaos of navigating young adulthood. We celebrated each other's triumphs, big and small, and supported each other through every setback. Maya had always been a little different from me. Where I was laid back and easygoing, she was ambitious and driven. While I was content with my freelance work and simple life, she craved success and recognition. She worked tirelessly to climb the corporate ladder in a high-powered marketing firm, often sacrificing sleep and personal time in pursuit of her goals. I admired her dedication, even though I couldn't quite understand her relentless pursuit of material wealth and status. I was always there to cheer her on, offering a listening ear and a comforting presence whenever she felt overwhelmed or discouraged. We had a shared dream, a vision we had nurtured since our college days, to start our own design agency. We spent countless hours brainstorming ideas, sketching logos, and crafting business plans. We envisioned a creative hub where we could collaborate with talented artists, work on meaningful projects, and build a supportive and inspiring work environment. It was a distant dream, something we talked about late at night over glasses of wine, but it was a dream that kept us going, a shared goal that strengthened our bond. Then came Ethan. He was everything I had ever wanted in a partner: kind, intelligent, funny, and incredibly handsome. We met at a local coffee shop, and there was an instant spark between us. He was a software engineer with a passion for music and a heart of gold. We bonded over our shared love of art, travel, and adventure. He challenged me to step outside my comfort zone, to embrace new experiences, and to see the world through a different lens. Our relationship blossomed quickly, and within a year, we were deeply in love and making plans for the future. We talked about marriage, children, and building a life together in San Diego. Ethan fit perfectly into my world, and he seemed to genuinely adore me for who I was. He loved my quirky sense of humor, my artistic spirit, and my unwavering loyalty to my friends and family. I introduced Ethan to Maya early on in our relationship, and they seemed to hit it off right away. Maya was always charming and outgoing, and she made an effort to connect with Ethan, asking him about his work, his hobbies, and his family. I was thrilled that they got along so well, as it meant that Ethan would become an integral part of our little friend group. We started spending more time together as a trio, going on hikes, attending concerts, and hosting dinner parties at my apartment. I felt like I had finally found the perfect balance in my life: a fulfilling career, a loving partner, and a supportive best friend. Then, slowly, subtly, things started to change. Maya began spending more and more time with Ethan, often without me. At first, I didn't think much of it. I assumed they were just bonding over shared interests or offering each other support during stressful times. But then I started noticing little things: lingering glances, inside jokes, and a certain electricity between them that made me feel uneasy. I tried to brush it off, telling myself that I was just being paranoid, that I was imagining things. But the feeling persisted, growing stronger with each passing day. One evening, I came home early from a design conference to find Maya and Ethan in my apartment. They were sitting on the couch, laughing and talking, their bodies closed together. As soon as they saw me, they both jumped apart, their faces flushed with guilt. The air in the room crackled with unspoken tension. I knew, in that moment, that my worst fears were true. Something was going on between them, something that they were hiding from me. The carefree life I had known shattered around me, leaving me reeling with disbelief and hurt. I confronted them both, my voice trembling with anger and betrayal. They denied everything at first, insisting that I was mistaken, that they were just friends. But I pressed them, refusing to back down until they finally confessed the truth. They had been having an affair for months, sneaking around behind my back, betraying my trust in the most devastating way possible. The pain was excruciating, a knife twisting in my heart. Not only had my best friend stolen my boyfriend, but she had also shattered my faith in human nature. I felt like everything I had believed in, everything I had valued, had been a lie. I kicked them both out of my apartment, my voice choked with sobs. I couldn't bear to look at them, to be in the same room with them. The betrayal was too deep, too profound. I felt utterly broken, lost, and alone. How could the two people I trusted most in the world do this to me? How could they so callously disregard my feelings, my happiness, my dreams? The following weeks were a blur of tears, sleepless nights, and endless replays of the events leading up to the betrayal. I couldn't eat, I couldn't sleep, I couldn't focus on my work. I felt like I was trapped in a nightmare, unable to wake up. My friends rallied around me, offering support and comfort, but nothing could ease the pain in my heart. I felt like a part of me had died, that I would never be able to trust anyone again. The dream life I had so carefully cultivated had been ripped away from me, leaving me with nothing but shattered hopes and broken promises. I felt like I had to escape the place that held so many painful memories. I considered moving back home, but knew that wouldn't solve anything. I needed to start fresh, but I had no idea how. One day, while mindlessly scrolling through social media, I stumbled upon an article about a remote island in the Caribbean offering grants to artists and entrepreneurs. The island was seeking individuals with innovative ideas and a passion for community development. The idea sparked something within me, a glimmer of hope in the darkness. It was a chance to escape my old life, to reinvent myself, and to pursue my dreams without the toxic influence of Maya and Ethan. I spent hours researching the island, learning about its culture, its people, and its stunning natural beauty. The more I learned, the more I felt drawn to the idea of starting a new life there. I decided to apply for the grant, pouring my heart and soul into the application, outlining my vision for a sustainable design agency that would empower local artists and artisans. I knew it was a long shot, but I had nothing to lose. It was a chance to reclaim my life, to prove to myself that I was capable of achieving my dreams, even after such a devastating betrayal. I hit send on the application, a mix of hope and trepidation swirling within me. Now, all I could do was wait. Would I get the grant? Could I really leave everything behind and start over in a completely new place? The uncertainty was terrifying, but also exhilarating. I knew that no matter what happened, I had to move forward to rebuild my life and to find happiness again. Weeks turned into months, and I tried to focus on healing and rebuilding my life. I threw myself into my work, taking on new projects and expanding my skills. I reconnected with old friends, spent time with my family, and started exploring new hobbies. I even started dating again, cautiously opening my heart to the possibility of finding love again. But no matter how hard I tried, I couldn't completely shake the feeling of betrayal and resentment. The image of Maya and Ethan together haunted me, a constant reminder of the pain they had inflicted upon me. I knew that I needed to find a way to let go of the anger and bitterness, to forgive them, not for their sake, but for my own. But forgiveness seemed impossible, a distant and unattainable goal. The wound was too deep, the betrayal too profound. Then one morning, I received an email that changed everything. It was from the Grant Committee of the Caribbean island. I held my breath as I opened the email, my heart pounding in my chest. The email began with the words, "We are pleased to inform you." I scanned the rest of the message, my eyes widening in disbelief. I had been awarded the grant. I had been selected as one of the recipients of their prestigious program. I couldn't believe it. My dream of starting a new life on a tropical island was about to become a reality. Tears streamed down my face as I read the email again and again, making sure that I wasn't dreaming. This was it, the opportunity I had been waiting for, the chance to escape my past and build a brighter future. The news filled me with a surge of excitement and anticipation. I immediately started making plans for my move, researching the island, connecting with local artists and entrepreneurs, and preparing for the challenges that lay ahead. The thought of leaving everything behind was daunting, but I knew that it was the right decision. I needed to break free from the toxic environment of my old life and create a space where I could thrive, both personally and professionally. As I prepared for my departure, I couldn't help but think about Maya and Ethan. I wondered if they were still together, if they were happy, if they ever thought about me. I knew that I should try to let go of the anger and resentment, but the thought of them living their lives without any consequences for their actions made my blood boil. I wanted them to suffer, to feel the same pain that they had inflicted upon me. I wanted to get revenge. One evening, while packing my belongings, I stumbled upon a box filled with old photos and mementos from my friendship with Maya. As I flipped through the photos, I was flooded with memories of our shared adventures, our inside jokes, and our unwavering support for each other. I remembered the dreams we had shared, the plans we had made, and the bond that we had believed would last a lifetime. The realization hit me like a ton of bricks. Maya hadn't just stolen my boyfriend, she had stolen my dream life. She had betrayed our friendship, shattered my trust, and left me with nothing but heartbreak and disappointment. That's when the idea struck me. The perfect revenge. It wouldn't involve yelling, screaming, or physical confrontation. It would be subtle, calculated, and ultimately devastating. I would use my design skills to create a project that would expose Maya's true nature to the world, revealing her ambition, her deceit, and her lack of empathy. I would turn her betrayal into a work of art, a cautionary tale about the dangers of envy and greed. My heart pounded with excitement as I began to formulate my plan. It was risky, it was audacious, but it was exactly what I needed to do to reclaim my power and find closure. Now, all I had to do was execute it flawlessly. The first step in my plan was to gather information. I needed to know everything about Maya's current life, her career, her relationships, and her social standing. I started by discreetly monitoring her social media accounts, paying close attention to her posts, her photos, and her interactions with others. I also reached out to mutual friends, casually asking about her whereabouts and her recent activities. I knew that I had to be careful not to arouse suspicion, so I made sure to keep my inquiries light and innocuous. As I gathered information, I began to piece together a picture of Maya's life since the affair. She and Ethan were still together, living in a lavish apartment in downtown San Diego. Maya had been promoted to a senior management position at her marketing firm, and she was enjoying the perks of her newfound success: expensive clothes, fancy cars, and frequent vacations. She seemed to be living the life that we had once dreamed of together, the life that she had stolen from me. The more I learned about Maya's life, the more determined I became to expose her true nature. I spent hours brainstorming ideas for my revenge project, sketching designs, and writing scripts. I wanted to create something that was both visually stunning and emotionally impactful, something that would resonate with people on a deep level. I decided to create a series of digital art pieces that would depict Maya's journey from a loyal friend to a ruthless betrayer. Each piece would represent a different stage in our relationship, highlighting her ambition, her envy, and her ultimate act of betrayal. I worked tirelessly on the project, pouring all of my anger, pain, and creativity into the artwork. I used vibrant colors, bold lines, and symbolic imagery to convey the intensity of my emotions. I also incorporated snippets of our conversations, our emails, and our text messages, weaving them into the designs to create a narrative that was both personal and universal. As I worked on the project, I started to feel a sense of catharsis. The act of creating art, of transforming my pain into something beautiful and meaningful, was incredibly healing. I realized that I wasn't just seeking revenge. I was also reclaiming my voice, my power, and my identity. I was refusing to be a victim, choosing instead to be a creator, an artist, and a survivor. After weeks of intense work, I finally completed the project. I had created a series of 10 digital art pieces that told the story of my friendship with Maya, from its innocent beginnings to its devastating end. The artwork was raw, honest, and deeply personal. I knew that it would be controversial, that it would likely cause a stir, but I also knew that it was the truth. The next step was to find a way to showcase the artwork to the world. I considered several options, including online galleries, art competitions, and social media platforms. But then I had an idea that was both brilliant and audacious. I would create a virtual reality experience that would allow viewers to step inside my story, to feel my emotions, and to witness Maya's betrayal firsthand. I spent weeks learning how to create virtual reality environments, using software that was both complex and challenging. It was a steep learning curve, but I was determined to make my vision a reality. I wanted to create an immersive experience that would transport viewers into my world, allowing them to understand the depth of my pain and the magnitude of Maya's betrayal. Finally, after months of hard work, I completed the virtual reality experience. It was a stunning and immersive creation, a testament to my artistic skills and my unwavering determination. I invited a group of friends and colleagues to test out the experience, and their reactions were overwhelmingly positive. They were moved by the story, impressed by the visuals, and deeply affected by the emotional impact of the artwork. With the virtual reality experience complete, I was ready to launch my revenge project. I created a website that would serve as a hub for the artwork, the virtual reality experience, and the story behind it all. I also created social media accounts to promote the project and to generate buzz. Before launching the website, I decided to send Maya a message. It was a simple email containing a link to the website and the words, "I thought you might find this interesting." I didn't expect her to respond, but I wanted her to know that I hadn't forgotten about her, that I hadn't forgiven her, and that I was about to expose her true nature to the world. I hit send on the email, took a deep breath, and launched the website. Within minutes, the site was flooded with traffic. People were drawn to the story, the artwork, and the virtual reality experience. They were sharing the link on social media, writing blog posts about it, and discussing it in online forums. The project went viral. The response to the project was overwhelming. People from all over the world reached out to me, offering their support, their sympathy, and their admiration. They shared their own stories of betrayal, of heartbreak, and of resilience. They told me that my artwork had inspired them, that it had given them hope, and that it had helped them to heal. As the project gained momentum, it inevitably caught the attention of the media. News outlets, magazines, and websites started covering the story, interviewing me and showcasing my artwork. The project became a global phenomenon, sparking conversations about friendship, betrayal, and the power of art to heal and transform. And then, finally, Maya saw the project. I received a phone call from her late one night. Her voice was trembling with anger and fear. She accused me of ruining her life, of destroying her reputation, and of seeking revenge for a mistake that she had already apologized for. I listened to her rant, my heart filled with a mixture of satisfaction and sadness. I knew that my project had hurt her, that it had exposed her true nature to the world, and that it had damaged her relationships with others. But I also knew that she deserved it. She had betrayed me in the most devastating way possible, and she had never truly taken responsibility for her actions. I told her that I wasn't seeking revenge, that I was simply telling my story. I told her that I had forgiven her, not for her sake, but for my own. I told her that I was moving on with my life, and that I hoped she could do the same. I hung up the phone, feeling a sense of closure that I hadn't felt in years. I had finally confronted my past, reclaimed my power, and found my voice. I was no longer a victim. I was a survivor, an artist, and a creator. The aftermath of the project was both chaotic and liberating. I received countless messages of support, but I also received criticism and hate. Some people accused me of being petty, vindictive, and attention-seeking. Others defended me, arguing that I had every right to tell my story and to express my emotions. Through it all, I remained true to myself. I knew that I had done what I needed to do to heal and to move on. I had used my art to transform my pain into something beautiful and meaningful, and I had inspired others to do the same. As the dust settled, I packed my bags and prepared for my move to the Caribbean island. I was nervous, but also excited. I was leaving behind my old life, my old relationships, and my old identity. I was embarking on a new adventure, a journey of self-discovery and creative exploration. I arrived on the island to be greeted by a warm and welcoming community. The locals were eager to embrace my vision for a sustainable design agency, and they were excited to collaborate with me on projects that would benefit the island. I quickly settled into my new life, finding joy in the simple things: the sunshine, the ocean, the vibrant culture, and the genuine connections with the people around me. My design agency flourished, becoming a hub for local artists and artisans. We worked on a variety of projects, from designing logos for small businesses to creating murals for public spaces. We also organized workshops and training programs to empower local creatives and to help them develop their skills. As I worked on the island, I started to reflect on my past, on my friendship with Maya, and on the events that had led me to this point. I realized that betrayal, while painful, had also been a catalyst for growth. It had forced me to confront my own vulnerabilities, to discover my inner strength, and to pursue my dreams with unwavering determination. I also realized that forgiveness, while difficult, was essential for healing. I had forgiven Maya, not because she deserved it, but because I needed to let go of the anger and resentment that were poisoning my soul. Forgiveness was a gift that I gave to myself, a way to free myself from the chains of the past. Years passed, and my life on the island continued to evolve. I fell in love again with a kind and compassionate man who appreciated my artistic spirit and supported my dreams. We built a life together, filled with love, laughter, and adventure. One day, I received an email from Maya. She had been following my work on the island, and she was impressed by what I had accomplished. She apologized again for her betrayal, and she expressed her regret for the pain she had caused me. I responded to her email, thanking her for her apology and wishing her well. I told her that I had moved on with my life, and that I hoped she had found happiness as well. I didn't harbor any ill feelings towards her, and I genuinely wished her the best. The email exchange was a turning point in my healing process. It allowed me to fully let go of the past and to embrace the present. I had forgiven Maya, and I had forgiven myself. I was finally free. As I sat on the beach, watching the sun set over the ocean, I realized that I had not only survived betrayal, but I had also thrived. I had transformed my pain into something beautiful and meaningful, and I had created a life that was filled with purpose, passion, and joy. My revenge project had not only exposed Maya's true nature, but it had also revealed my own resilience, my own creativity, and my own capacity for forgiveness. It had taught me that betrayal, while devastating, can also be an opportunity for growth, for transformation, and for the creation of a new and better self. And as for Maya, well, her life took a turn I never expected. The exposure from my project cost her her job and strained her relationship with Ethan. They eventually broke up, and she moved away, seeking a fresh start far from the wreckage she'd created. Karma, it seemed, had a way of catching up, but my story doesn't end with her downfall. It ends with me, on a beach under a sunset, finally free. The design agency thrives, relationships blossom, and the scars of the past fade, replaced by the vibrant colors of a life I built, a life that is truly, authentically mine. But the story doesn't quite end there. A new email arrived, not from Maya, but from someone claiming to be a long-lost relative of Ethan. The subject line: "He's not who you think he is." The email was short, cryptic, and sent from an untraceable address. Intrigued and admittedly a little uneasy, I hesitated before opening it. The last thing I needed was another ghost from my past stirring up trouble. But curiosity, and perhaps a sliver of lingering resentment, won out. The email contained a single attachment, a heavily redacted document with various financial statements and legal records. Skimming through it, I quickly realized what I was looking at. Ethan wasn't just a software engineer, he was a con artist, and Maya had been one of his targets. The documents suggested he'd been systematically siphoning money from her accounts under the guise of investments and business ventures. It was a meticulously crafted scheme, designed to bleed her dry without raising suspicion. A cold wave washed over me. Maya had betrayed me in the most intimate way imaginable, but now it seemed she, too, had been a victim. The irony was almost unbearable. I felt a strange mix of vindication and pity. Pity for the woman who had once been my best friend, now a pawn in someone else's game. A wave of nausea washed over me. This wasn't revenge, it was just another layer of tragedy. But what to do with this information? Expose Ethan again? Let Maya wallow in the consequences of her actions? Neither option felt right. I paced my beach house, the rhythmic crash of the waves offering no comfort. Finally, I made a decision. I couldn't stand idly by while Ethan continued his charade. I wouldn't let him get away with preying on another unsuspecting victim. I drafted a new email, carefully worded to avoid implicating myself or revealing the source of the information. I attached the redacted document and sent it to Maya. The message simply read, "I think you should look into this." Then, I deleted the original email and cleared my browsing history, severing any connection to the information. The ball was now in Maya's court. Whether she chose to investigate, confront Ethan, or ignore the warning was up to her. I had done what I felt was right, and I had to trust that she would do the same. I couldn't control her actions, just as I couldn't control the events of the past. All I could do was focus on my own life, my own happiness, and my own future. The weight on my shoulders lifted slightly, replaced by a sense of peace. I had finally broken free from the cycle of revenge, choosing instead to offer a helping hand. It wasn't the dramatic, calculated scheme I had initially envisioned, but it was perhaps the most effective form of justice. It was about allowing Maya to reclaim her own power, to confront her own demons, and to ultimately find her own redemption. Weeks turned into months, and I heard nothing from Maya. I tried not to dwell on it, focusing instead on my work, my relationship, and my life on the island. But the question lingered in the back of my mind. What had she done with the information? Had she confronted Ethan? Had she fallen for his lies again? I knew I might never know the answer, and I had to be okay with that. One afternoon, as I was sketching designs for a new mural, I received a visitor at my studio. It was Maya. She looked different, weary but also resolute. Her eyes held a depth I hadn't seen before, a hint of understanding and self-awareness. "Olivia," she said, her voice barely a whisper. "Thank you." I didn't know what to say. My mind raced, trying to reconcile the Maya who had betrayed me with the woman standing before me, her eyes filled with a vulnerability I hadn't seen in years. "Thank you for what?" I finally managed to ask, my voice barely above a whisper. She took a shaky breath, her gaze drifting towards the ocean. "For the email, for showing me the truth." She hesitated, then continued. "It wasn't easy to accept, but you were right. Ethan, he wasn't who I thought he was. He had manipulated me, used me just like he used you." I watched her, my heart aching with a mixture of sympathy and a strange sense of camaraderie. We had both been victims of his deceit, bound together by a shared pain. "I confronted him," she said, her voice gaining strength. "It was ugly. He denied everything at first, but I showed him the documents. He couldn't lie his way out of that." "What happened?" I asked, bracing myself for the answer. "I left him. I walked away from everything we had built, or rather, everything he had built with my money." She managed a weak smile. "It was the hardest thing I've ever done, but it was also the most liberating." I nodded, understanding her pain all too well. "Where are you now?" I asked. "I moved back home to Chicago. I'm living with my parents, trying to rebuild my life. It's not glamorous, but it's honest. I'm working on myself, trying to become a better person." She looked at me, her eyes pleading for understanding. "I know what I did was unforgivable, Olivia. I don't expect you to ever trust me again. But I want you to know that I am truly sorry. I was blinded by ambition and envy, and I hurt the one person who always believed in me." Tears welled up in my eyes. I wanted to hate her, to hold on to the anger and resentment that had fueled me for so long. But seeing her standing there, broken and vulnerable, I couldn't. The years of friendship, the shared dreams, the countless memories, they all came rushing back, softening the edges of my anger. "I know," I said softly. "I know you're sorry." A fragile silence fell between us, broken only by the sound of the waves crashing against the shore. Then Maya spoke again. "There's something else," she said, her voice hesitant. "After I left Ethan, I started digging into his past. I wanted to know who he really was, what he had done before me." She paused, taking a deep breath. "What I found, it wasn't good. He's been doing this for years, Olivia. He targets successful women, charms them, and then slowly bleeds them dry. He's a professional con artist." My blood ran cold. This wasn't just about me and Maya. It was about a pattern of abuse, a deliberate targeting of vulnerable women. "What did you find?" I asked, my voice tight with anger. She pulled a USB drive from her purse. "I have everything, bank records, emails, even recordings of his conversations with other women. It's all there." She held out the drive to me. "I want you to have it. Do whatever you think is right with it. Expose him, warn others, whatever you need to do." I took the drive, my fingers trembling. This was it, the opportunity to finally bring Ethan to justice, to stop him from hurting anyone else. But as I looked at Maya, I realized that this wasn't just about revenge. It was about protecting others, about preventing future betrayals. And as I looked into Maya's eyes, I saw not the ambitious, envious woman who had betrayed me, but someone who had finally woken up, someone who was ready to take responsibility for her actions and help others. A new chapter was starting. The betrayal wasn't just a personal pain. It was a part of a story that was bigger than me and bigger than her. What was on the USB drive? I clutched the USB drive, its smooth surface cold against my palm. "What are you going to do?" Maya asked, her voice barely audible. I looked at her, her eyes filled with a mixture of hope and apprehension. "I don't know yet," I admitted, "but I promise you I'm going to do everything I can to stop him." She nodded, a faint smile gracing her lips. "Thank you," she whispered, "for everything." We stood in silence for a moment longer, the weight of our shared past hanging heavy in the air. Then Maya turned and walked away, disappearing down the beach. I watched her go, a strange sense of closure washing over me. The chapter of betrayal and revenge was finally closed. Now, it was time to focus on the future, on using the information Maya had given me to protect others from Ethan's deceit. I spent the next few days poring over the contents of the USB drive. It was a treasure trove of incriminating evidence. Bank statements, emails, text messages, even audio recordings of Ethan's conversations with other women. The sheer scale of his operation was staggering. He had been systematically conning women out of their money for years, moving from city to city, leaving a trail of broken hearts and empty bank accounts in his wake. As I delved deeper into the evidence, I discovered a pattern in Ethan's methods. He targeted successful, independent women who were vulnerable in some way, recently divorced, struggling with loneliness, or simply longing for connection. He would charm them with his wit and intelligence, shower them with attention and affection, and then slowly gain their trust. Once he had them hooked, he would start to weave a web of lies, convincing them to invest in bogus business ventures, loan him money for fabricated emergencies, or simply hand over their credit card information for safekeeping. He was a master manipulator, preying on their emotions and exploiting their vulnerabilities. I was filled with a burning desire to expose him, to bring him to justice for the pain he had inflicted on so many women. But I knew that I had to be careful. Ethan was a skilled liar and a master of deception. He would stop at nothing to protect himself. I couldn't just go to the police with the evidence. I needed a plan, a strategy that would ensure his downfall. I decided to enlist the help of a private investigator. I needed someone with experience in financial crimes, someone who could help me unravel Ethan's complex web of deceit and build a solid case against him. I reached out to a former colleague who had worked as a forensic accountant. She recommended a private investigator named Jake, a former law enforcement officer with a reputation for being thorough and discreet. I met with Jake in a secluded cafe, explaining my situation and showing him the evidence I had gathered. He listened intently, his eyes narrowed in concentration. "This guy is a pro," he said after reviewing the documents. "He knows how to cover his tracks, but he's not perfect. Everyone makes mistakes. We just need to find them." Jake agreed to take on the case, promising to dedicate his full attention to bringing Ethan to justice. Over the next few weeks, Jake worked tirelessly, tracing Ethan's financial transactions, interviewing his former associates, and gathering additional evidence. He uncovered a network of offshore accounts, shell corporations, and fake identities that Ethan had used to conceal his ill-gotten gains. He also identified several other women who had been victimized by Ethan, some of whom were willing to come forward and share their stories. As the evidence mounted, I felt a growing sense of hope. We were finally closing in on Ethan, dismantling his carefully constructed world of lies and deceit. But I also knew that he wouldn't go down without a fight. He was a desperate man, and desperate men are capable of anything. One evening, as I was working late in my studio, I received a phone call from Jake. His voice was urgent. "Olivia, we have a problem," he said. "Ethan knows we're onto him. He's skipped town." My heart sank. We were so close, but now he had slipped through our fingers. "Where did he go?" I asked, my voice trembling. "We don't know for sure, but we suspect he's headed to Mexico. He has connections there, and he knows the authorities won't be able to touch him." I felt a surge of anger and frustration. He wasn't going to get away with this. I had come too far, sacrificed too much to let him escape justice. "I'm going after him," I said, my voice firm. "I'm going to Mexico." Jake hesitated. "Olivia, that's not a good idea. It's too dangerous. Let the authorities handle it." "I appreciate your concern, Jake, but this is personal. I need to do this. I need to face him, to look him in the eye and tell him that he can't keep hurting people." I knew that it was a reckless decision, but I couldn't shake the feeling that I had to do it. I had to confront Ethan, not just for myself, but for all the women he had victimized. What risks would Olivia face in Mexico? I booked the first flight to Mexico City, my mind racing with a mixture of fear and determination. I knew that I was walking into a dangerous situation, but I couldn't shake the feeling that I had to do this. I had to confront Ethan, to stop him from hurting anyone else. I arrived in Mexico City late at night, the air thick with humidity and the sounds of honking cars and bustling crowds. I checked into a small hotel in the city center, my senses on high alert. I knew that Ethan could be anywhere, watching my every move. The next morning, I met with Jake's contact in Mexico, a former police officer named Miguel. Miguel was a gruff, weathered man with a network of informants and a deep knowledge of the local underworld. He listened intently as I explained my situation, his eyes narrowed in concentration. "This man you seek, Ethan, he is a snake," Miguel said, his voice gravelly. "He has many friends in low places. It will not be easy to find him." Miguel agreed to help me track down Ethan, but he warned me that it would be a risky undertaking. "You must be careful," he said. "The people we are dealing with are dangerous. They will not hesitate to harm you if you get in their way." I nodded, steeling myself for the challenges ahead. I knew that I was putting myself in harm's way, but I was determined to see this through. Miguel spent the next few days gathering information, interviewing his contacts, and scouring the city for any sign of Ethan. He learned that Ethan had been staying in a small town on the coast, a popular destination for tourists and expats. He had been using a fake name and had been living a lavish lifestyle, spending money freely and charming the locals. Miguel arranged for a car and a driver to take me to the coastal town. He warned me that it was a long and dangerous journey, but I was undeterred. I was determined to find Ethan, no matter what it took. The drive to the coast was grueling, the roads winding and treacherous. We passed through dusty villages and sprawling slums, the poverty and desperation palpable in the air. As we neared the coast, the landscape began to change, the arid desert giving way to lush tropical vegetation. The air grew warmer and more humid, and the scent of salt and sea filled my nostrils. We arrived in the coastal town late in the afternoon, the sun beating down on the whitewashed buildings and swaying palm trees. The town was bustling with tourists and locals, the air filled with the sounds of music, laughter, and the cries of vendors hawking their wares. Miguel had given me the address of a small hotel where Ethan had been staying. I checked in, my heart pounding in my chest. I was finally here, face to face with the man who had caused me so much pain. I spent the next few hours staking out the hotel, watching for any sign of Ethan. I saw tourists coming and going, locals going about their daily lives, but no sign of the man I was looking for. As darkness fell, I began to lose hope. Maybe Miguel's information was wrong. Maybe Ethan had already left town. Just as I was about to give up, I saw him. He emerged from the hotel, dressed in a white linen shirt and khaki shorts, his arm around a young woman with long blonde hair. He looked relaxed and carefree, as if he didn't have a care in the world. I felt a surge of anger and revulsion. He was still at it, still preying on unsuspecting women. I had to stop him. I followed him as he strolled down the street, his laughter echoing in the night air. He led the woman to a small restaurant on the beach, where they sat down at a table overlooking the ocean. I took a seat at a nearby table, trying to blend in with the other tourists. I watched them as they ate and drank, their eyes locked in a gaze of apparent adoration. I knew that I had to confront him, but I wasn't sure how to do it. I couldn't just walk up to him and accuse him of being a con artist. I needed a plan, a strategy that would expose him for who he really was. What was her plan, and what if it went wrong? I sat at my table, nursing a glass of water and trying to formulate a plan. I couldn't just confront Ethan directly. He would deny everything and probably try to disappear again. I needed to expose him publicly, to reveal his true nature to the woman he was with and to anyone else who might be vulnerable to his charms. I glanced around the restaurant, my eyes searching for an opportunity. The restaurant was crowded with tourists and locals, the air filled with the sounds of chatter and laughter. A small band was playing live music, their upbeat rhythms adding to the festive atmosphere. Suddenly, an idea struck me. I could use the music to my advantage. I could ask the band to play a song that would expose Ethan's deceit, a song that would reveal his true character to the world. I approached the band leader, a middle-aged man with a friendly smile and a guitar slung over his shoulder. "Excuse me," I said. "I have a rather unusual request." I explained my situation, telling him about Ethan and his history of conning women. I asked him if he would be willing to play a song that I had written, a song that would expose Ethan's deceit. The bandleader listened intently, his expression thoughtful. "I don't know," he said. "We usually just play popular songs. I'm not sure if we can play something we haven't rehearsed." "I understand," I said, "but this is really important. This man is hurting people and I need to stop him. The song is simple, just a few chords. I can show you." I pulled out my phone and played a recording of the song I had written. It was a ballad, a lament about betrayal and deceit. The lyrics were pointed and direct, clearly aimed at someone who had betrayed the trust of others. The bandleader listened to the song, his eyes widening in surprise. "This is powerful," he said. "I think we can do it, but you have to promise me no violence. We don't want any trouble." "I promise," I said. "I just want to expose him. I want people to know who he really is." The bandleader nodded and turned to his bandmates, explaining the situation and showing them the chords to the song. They looked hesitant at first, but they eventually agreed to give it a try. I waited anxiously as the band prepared to play. My heart was pounding in my chest, my palms were sweating. I knew that this was a risky plan, but I was determined to see it through. The bandleader stepped up to the microphone and addressed the crowd. "We have a special request tonight," he said. "A young woman in the audience has written a song about betrayal and deceit. She wants to share it with you all." He nodded to me, and I took a deep breath and walked up to the stage. I stood beside the bandleader, my hands trembling. I looked at Ethan, who was staring at me with a look of confusion and suspicion. I knew that he recognized me, that he knew what was coming. The band began to play, the gentle melody filling the air. I closed my eyes for a moment, gathering my courage. Then I began to sing. My voice was shaky at first, but it grew stronger as I poured my heart and soul into the lyrics. I sang about the pain of betrayal, the sting of deceit, and the importance of standing up for what is right. As I sang, I watched Ethan's face. His expression changed from confusion to anger to finally fear. The woman he was with looked at him with a mixture of shock and disbelief. When the song was over, the restaurant was silent. Everyone was staring at Ethan, their eyes filled with judgment and condemnation. He stood up abruptly, knocking over his chair. "You're crazy," he shouted at me. "You're a liar." "Don't listen to her." He grabbed the woman's hand and tried to pull her away, but she resisted. "Is it true?" she asked him, her voice trembling. "Are you a con artist?" Ethan's face contorted with rage. He shoved the woman aside and stormed out of the restaurant, disappearing into the night. The woman stood there for a moment, stunned and heartbroken. Then she began to cry. I walked over to her and put my arm around her. "I'm so sorry," I said. "He's done this to a lot of women." She looked at me, her eyes filled with tears. "Thank you," she said, "for warning me." My plan had worked. I had exposed Ethan's deceit and prevented him from hurting another woman. But as I looked around the restaurant, I realized that my actions had consequences. The festive atmosphere had been shattered, replaced by a sense of unease and suspicion. Had she gone too far, the band stopped playing and the restaurant remained in stunned silence. The woman Ethan had been with was sobbing softly, and other patrons stared at me with a mixture of curiosity, shock, and even a hint of disapproval. I had achieved my goal of exposing Ethan, but the fallout was more complex than I had anticipated. I had disrupted the peace, shattered illusions, and brought a wave of negativity into what had been a carefree evening. A part of me wondered if I had gone too far, if there was a less disruptive way I could have handled the situation. But then I looked at the woman, her face streaked with tears but her eyes clear and focused, and I knew I had done the right thing. Better a moment of discomfort than a lifetime of exploitation. I helped her to a chair and offered her a glass of water. She took it with a trembling hand, her gaze fixed on the empty doorway where Ethan had disappeared. "I can't believe it," she whispered. I thought he loved me." "I know," I said gently. "He's very good at what he does. He knows how to manipulate people, how to make them believe he's someone he's not." I shared my own story with her, explaining how Ethan had charmed me, how he had gained my trust, and how he had ultimately betrayed me. She listened intently, her eyes widening with recognition. "It's the same story," she said. "He told me he was an investor, that he was looking for someone to help him with his business. He said he loved my ambition, my drive." "He says that to all of us," I said. "It's part of his act." We talked for a long time, sharing our experiences and offering each other comfort. As we spoke, I realized that I wasn't just helping her to heal, I was also helping myself. By sharing my story, I was breaking free from the shame and guilt that had haunted me for so long. I was no longer a victim, I was a survivor. After a while, the woman started to calm down. She thanked me for my honesty and my courage. "I don't know what I would have done if you hadn't warned me," she said. "He had already convinced me to invest a large sum of money in his business. I dread to think what would have happened if I had gone through with it." "I'm glad I could help," I said. "Just promise me you'll report him to the authorities. He needs to be stopped." She nodded, her eyes filled with determination. "I will," she said. "I'm not going to let him get away with this." We exchanged contact information and promised to stay in touch. Then, she left the restaurant, her head held high. As I watched her go, I felt a sense of satisfaction and relief. I had not only exposed Ethan, but I had also empowered another woman to take control of her life and seek justice. But my work wasn't done yet. Ethan was still out there, and he was likely already searching for his next victim. I needed to find a way to stop him for good. I returned to my hotel room and contacted Jake, the private investigator who had helped me track down Ethan. I told him what had happened and asked him to alert the authorities in Mexico. "He's going to try to flee the country," I said. "You need to catch him before he does." Jake promised to do everything he could. He contacted his contacts in the Mexican police and provided them with Ethan's description and his likely escape routes. The next few days were a blur of anxiety and anticipation. I stayed in my hotel room, glued to the news, waiting for any word about Ethan's capture. I knew that he was a slippery character, and I feared that he would somehow manage to evade the authorities. But then, on the third day, I received a phone call from Jake. "We got him," he said, his voice filled with triumph. "The Mexican police apprehended him at the airport. He was trying to board a flight to Belize." I felt a wave of relief wash over me. It was finally over. Ethan was in custody, and he would finally be held accountable for his crimes. The Mexican authorities extradited Ethan to the United States, where he was charged with multiple counts of fraud, theft, and money laundering. He pleaded guilty to the charges and was sentenced to a long prison term. I attended his sentencing hearing, wanting to see him face justice for the pain he had caused. As he stood before the judge, his eyes filled with remorse, I felt a sense of closure. I had finally gotten my revenge, not through violence or malice, but through truth and justice. With Ethan behind bars, I could finally move on with my life, free from the fear and anger that had consumed me for so long. I returned to my island home, eager to resume my work and my relationships. I had learned a valuable lesson about trust, betrayal, and the importance of standing up for what is right. But one question remained. What would happen to Maya? Life on the island slowly returned to normal. The sun shone brighter, the ocean sparkled with renewed vigor, and my design business thrived. I had found peace and purpose in my work, and my relationship with David deepened with each passing day. Yet, the shadow of Maya still lingered in the back of my mind. I wondered how she was coping with the fallout from Ethan's arrest, if she had managed to rebuild her life after being so thoroughly betrayed. Several months passed without any word. Then, one afternoon, I received an unexpected package in the mail. It was a small, hand-painted box, decorated with vibrant colors and intricate designs. I opened it carefully, my heart pounding with anticipation. Inside, I found a handwritten letter and a small, silver charm in the shape of a hummingbird. The letter was from Maya. "Olivia," she wrote, "I wanted to thank you again for everything you've done." Exposing Ethan was the best thing that could have happened to me, even though it was incredibly painful. It forced me to confront my own flaws and to take responsibility for my choices. I've been in therapy, working through my issues with ambition and envy. It's a long process, but I'm making progress. I'm also starting a new business, a nonprofit organization that helps women who have been victims of financial fraud. I want to use my experience to help others avoid the same mistakes I made. The hummingbird charm is a symbol of hope and resilience. I wanted to give it to you as a reminder that even after the darkest storms, we can still find beauty and joy in life. I hope you're doing well on the island. I'm so glad you found your happiness. Maybe one day I'll come visit you. With love, Maya. Tears streamed down my face as I read the letter. I was so proud of Maya for taking control of her life and turning her pain into something positive. She had found her purpose, her own way of making amends for her past mistakes. I held the hummingbird charm close to my heart, feeling a deep sense of connection to Maya. We had both been through so much, but we had emerged stronger and more resilient. I decided to write Maya a letter in return, expressing my admiration for her courage and her commitment to helping others. I also invited her to visit me on the island, telling her that I would love to show her my new life. A few weeks later, I received a reply from Maya. She thanked me for my kind words and said that she would definitely take me up on my offer to visit. "I'm not sure when I'll be able to make it," she wrote, "but I promise I'll get there eventually. I want to see your island paradise and to finally put the past behind us." I smiled, feeling a sense of peace and contentment. The circle was finally complete. I had found forgiveness, I had found justice, and I had rediscovered the bond of friendship that had been so cruelly broken. As I looked out at the ocean, the sun setting in a blaze of glory, I knew that I was finally free. The betrayal of the past had shaped me, challenged me, and ultimately made me a stronger and more compassionate person. I had learned that revenge is a dish best served cold, but forgiveness is a gift that warms the soul. And who was this message from in the end?